people who treat relationships like ladders. That is why I left that world. A few are dangerous. Erica falls into the latter category not because she is just ambitious, but because of how calculated and performative her ambition appears to be. I believe she may be a psychopath.
So there's not much reporting there. It's just her sharing a post she liked. Now, even though this didn't have much journalistic value, one thing I do agree with in the post is that even people who like Candace or who like Erica Kirk are uncomfortable with her. I think that part is very true. But then she gets into the fact finding and she goes into Erica Kirk's family history.
I was the only one on the phone trying to hold it by myself.
Father too. You can
No heels.
I'll show that.
No assist from DPS.
You've got Larry in the photo. Because he has been a fixture in her life since before her parents' divorce was ever finalized. Because both he
that was
and
literally
his
the
son
only
are
one on
also
top of
in
the point trying to hold
In
it.
this section, she goes into poking holes into when Erica was born because of discrepancy in like 1 to 2 days. And then she goes into some of the divorce dates and talking about how weird.
I'm curious to see what these heel numbers are going to look like at the
I
end.
won't lie to you. When she's going through some of this, some of it does look a little bit off, that there's like 4 different divorce dates or like marriage dates in terms of when they got married. But then she goes into the claim that Erica made that she was raised by a single mother. And to counter that, she goes, no, these men were clearly in her life. And at one point, she pulls up the
Everybody
yearbook
stay
of
together.
Erica Kirk.
Healer stay
She
in the
shows
back.
pictures of the fathers or the stepfathers in the yearbook, okay?
Confirmed with classmates Larry and Lori were together since Erica's elementary school days. In other words, Erica grew up in a situation that is now termed as a bonus dad. Both her biological father and her stepfather figure were present and all living in and around the Scottsdale area. So why this little public misrepresentation? I would be super offended if I was a stay-at-home dad, and then suddenly you've got someone saying, I was all alone. My mom did it all by herself. Now, you will see throughout this investigation that there are a lot of little wrinkles like this in Erica's story. Even if you removed Kent, Erica was raised with her stepfather in her home. A man named Larry Ginta. In her high school yearbook, actually, Kent is included, her father.
I really enjoy, every time she said Kent, I heard something else. And she said it with such enthusiasm. I'm like, go girl.
Father,
what a fucking Kent.
in a collage. And so are his parents, her grandparents. So we can reasonably assume that her father was in her life. We can also assume from that photo that Erica was exceedingly close to her stepfather too.
So this is my problem sometimes when I watch Candace. Is Candace will do all the research, she'll do a lot of legwork, and then she'll say a line like, we can reasonably assume. And when I hear reasonably assume, I'm like, based off what? Because he's in the yearbook photo. Why is that a reasonable assumption?
Well, because he's there.
And like
He's there. He wouldn't be there if he was not in her life.
I think the main issue I have is I think a lot of the legwork that happens with people buying into this is that they already hate Erica Kirk and think she's a fraud. So they'll listen to this and they're already connecting. And Candace doesn't do a great job in some of the situations of connecting the dots. She will just infer very strongly or say stuff like, we can, no. I've taken plenty of pictures with people, family members over the years. They've shown up in family photo albums. I'm not close to them. Why are we assuming that these fathers were necessarily in her life or that close to her based off a yearbook photo?
Aren't you close with all your fans that you take pictures with? You're not.
Well, she'll probably argue that a yearbook photo is much more intimate.
Fair.
But I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people in there that she's not close with that are in those photos. Maybe she had to take those photos and they had to be included. You don't know.
Oh my God.
But if your form of journalism is just, I'm going to reasonably infer, especially with things that
This
are
broken bag are too busy trying to fight people. She ain't healing.
I don't think that's fair. Am I bugging on
You're
this
not
point?
bugging, but also the other thing that happened is that whenever people speak like her,
It's clear I'm still needed here.
and we have a bias where people are eloquent. We right away think
touch
like,
of
oh,
healing.
that person 100% knows what they're talking about. Everything is uninterrupted. She knows she got the nose down packed. And we could see that in politics whenever people are stuttering or looking for, or, Pearl Davis having a debate. If you're just looking at your notes, you're like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Compared to women, what's the number for women?
It's lower.
Really? What is it?
To be fair, she didn't know what she was talking about. But in the way that she speaks, in the way that she's presenting herself, people are going to
clear
be
I'm
like,
still needed
she's
here.
speaking like it's the truth, so it must be.
They're confirming their biases.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't like Erica Kirk either, but I'm trying to be fair because I do want to see some evidence, okay?
Start with her birthday. Okay, give you another example here. Erica Franz Faye, we are told, was born on November 20th, 1988 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Great. There's a newspaper relic announcing her birth 2 weeks later.
Yo, her name's not Erica Kirk here. That's crazy.
It's Erica Lane Franceville.
Isn't that suspicious, though?
Whoa.
Because she's pretending to be Erica Kirk now.
I won't disappear.
I'm not
so
saying anything.
easily.
I think that's odd that she wasn't born Erica Kirk.
Would you say that we could confidently
Born.
say that
Don't mind me.
that
I'm being
I know I'm not mad at you.
I like whenever I see the word Kent, I get excited. Let me stop.
By the way, it's just something to note about Good Samaritan Hospital. A little fun fact. That actually used to be the U.S. Marines Hospital, one that once upon a time caused a little bit of a scandal for unethically experimenting on brains of patients.
This is another thing she does. She'll just insert these random facts and let you connect the dots. Like if you have a conspiratorial mind, you'll hear that and be like, Erica Kirk is a fucking experiment manufactured by the government. Like it is the perfect bait. The way she just throws it in,
and she never said that.
but she does just enough to be like government spy.
Anyway, the story goes that the U.S. Marine Hospital just up and decided to gift the hospital to the Catholic Sisters of Charity out of the goodness of their Marine hearts or something. Because our military is known for that, just being really, really kind and giving it.
Even this is such an odd thing to say, because yes, government groups oftentimes will donate their facilities if they don't think they can reasonably sell it, or if the upscale, the renovations required make it a very unsellable prospect, or if there's a deal with the city and so the government's going to hand it over to a group who can manage it. It's a hospital. It's going to help save people. It's not that odd for them to offload it if their facilities are outdated or old. And military bases move. They don't stay in the same spot. Actually, we had a huge amount of changes to how military bases were set up like 20 to 30 years ago. And the main reason was they needed to change their defense strategy to put their bases in optimal places. So they consolidated the base or the hospital in a different spot. But her just dropping this there without like doing the extra research and then just leaving this kind of open-ended fact and going, isn't it odd? Isn't it weird? It's like, no, there's plenty of buildings that get donated at times, or if the facilities are really old, and they just kind of get given away to groups who can handle it.
Yeah, but she's not saying it's weird. She's asking you if it's weird. Do you? Connect the dots.
Let's stick with Grandpa Carl Kenneth Franceville for a little bit because he is, by all accounts, obviously Swedish. Erica herself is therefore Syrian Lebanese on her mother's side and Swedish on her father's side. So something which struck me as immediately odd about Erica is just how deeply she identifies as Swedish, despite her public insistence that she was raised by a quote-unquote single mother. Think about that just from a social perspective. If Erica was indeed raised by a single mother, wouldn't you expect her to identify more deeply with those Lebanese Syrian roots, right?
Myron Gaines. And he was raised by two black parents, and he identifies with white supremacists.
If she resented her Swedish roots, like my dad didn't do anything, and so I'm not even doing anything with the Swedes. I don't even like being Swedish. To the contrary, Erica feels so deeply attached to her Scandinavian roots that in 2019 she moved to begin the process of obtaining her dual citizenship.
See, like, even this framing, as if there's no, like, other reasonable explanations. But I know plenty of people who are ostracized by one side of the family and still identify with that ethnically. It's not abnormal at all. They feel like their identity is bad, so they want to identify with the part of them that they feel like is most socially acceptable or good with the worldview that they have. How many times have I known kids who were black, raised by two white parents, and they identify more with their black side?
I know a couple of white girls that identify well, but anyways, never mind. It's fine.
I don't mind that she's asking questions. What I don't like is she's in
Book, actually, Kent is included, her father.
I really enjoy, every time she said Kent, I heard something else. And she said it with such enthusiasm. I'm like, go girl.
Father,
what a fucking Kent.
in a collage. And so are his parents, her grandparents. So we can reasonably assume that her father was in her life. We can also assume from that photo that Erica was exceedingly close to her stepfather too.
So this is my problem sometimes when I watch Candace. Is Candace will do all the research, she'll do a lot of legwork, and then she'll say a line like, we can reasonably assume. And when I hear reasonably assume, I'm like, based off what? Because he's in the yearbook photo. Why is that a reasonable assumption?
Well, because he's there.
And like,
He's there. He wouldn't be there if he was not in her life.
I think the main issue I have is I think a lot of the legwork that happens with people buying into this is that they already hate Erica Kirk and think she's a fraud. So they'll listen to this and they're already connecting. And Candace doesn't do a great job in some of the situations of connecting the dots. She will just infer very strongly or say stuff like, no. I've taken plenty of pictures with people, family members over the years. They've shown up in family photo albums. I'm not close to them. Why are we assuming that these fathers were necessarily in her life or that close to her based off a yearbook photo?
Aren't you close with all your fans that you take pictures with? You're not.
Well, she'll probably argue that a yearbook photo is much more intimate.
Fair.
But I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people in there that she's not close with that are in those photos. Maybe she had to take those photos and they had to be included. You don't know. But if your form of journalism is just, I'm going to reasonably infer, especially with things that are not that inferable based off of simple photos, I don't think that's fair. Am I bugging on
You're
this
not
point?
bugging, but also the other thing that happened is that whenever people speak like her, because she's eloquent, and we have a bias where people are eloquent. We right away think like, oh, that person 100% knows what they're talking about. Everything is uninterrupted. She knows she got the nose down packed, and we could see that in politics. Whenever people are stuttering or looking for, or Pearl Davis having a debate. If you're just looking at your notes, and you're like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Compared to women, what's the number for women?
It's lower.
Really? What is it?
To be fair, she didn't know what she was talking about. But in the way that she speaks, in the way that she's presenting herself, people are going to be like, she's speaking like it's the truth, so it must be.
They're confirming their biases.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't like Erica Kirk either, but I'm trying to be fair because I do want to see some evidence, okay?
Start with her birthday. Okay, give you another example here. Erica Francevey, we are told, was born on November 20th, 1988 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Great, there's a newspaper relic announcing her birth 2 weeks later.
Yo, her name's not Erica Kirk here. That's crazy.
It's Erica Lane Francevey.
Isn't that suspicious, though?
Whoa.
Because she's pretending to be Erica Kirk now. I'm not saying anything. I think that's odd that she wasn't born Erica Kirk.
Would you say that we can confidently say that?
Don't mind me.
That
I'm being
I know I'm not mad at you.
I like whenever I see the word Kent, I get excited. Let me stop.
By the way, it's just something to note about Good Samaritan Hospital, a little fun fact. That actually used to be the U.S. Marines Hospital, one that once upon a time caused a little bit of a scandal for unethically experimenting on brains of patients.
This is another thing she does. She'll just insert these random facts and let you connect the dots. Like if you have a conspiratorial mind, you'll hear that and be like, Erica Kirk is a fucking experiment manufactured by the government. Like it is the perfect bait. The way she just throws it in,
and she never said that.
but she does just enough to be like government spy.
Anyway, the story goes that the U.S. Marine Hospital just up and decided to gift the hospital to the Catholic Sisters of Charity out of the goodness of their Marine hearts or something. Because our military is known for that, just being really, really kind and giving up.
Even this is such an odd thing to say, because yes, government groups oftentimes will donate their facilities if they don't think they can reasonably sell it, or if the upscale, the renovations required make it very unsellable prospect, or if there's a deal with the city, and so the government's going to hand it over to a group who can manage it. It's a hospital. It's going to help save people. It's not that odd for them to offload it if their facilities are outdated or old. And military bases move. They don't stay in the same spot. Actually, we had a huge amount of changes to how military bases were set up like 20 to 30 years ago. And the main reason was they needed to change their defense strategy to put their bases in optimal places. So they consolidated the base or the hospital in a different spot. But her just dropping this there without like doing the extra research and then just leaving this kind of open-ended fact and going, isn't it odd? Isn't it weird? It's like, no. There's plenty of buildings that get donated at times, or if the facilities are really old, and they just kind of get given away to groups who can handle it.
Yeah, but she's not saying it's weird. She's asking you if it's weird. Do you connect the dots?
Let's stick with Grandpa Carl Kenneth Francevey for a little bit, because he is, by all accounts, obviously Swedish. Erica herself is therefore Syrian Lebanese on her mother's side and Swedish on her father's side. So something which struck me as immediately odd about Erica is just how deeply she identifies as Swedish, despite her public insistence that she was raised by a quote-unquote single mother. Think about that just from a social perspective. If Erica was indeed raised by a single mother, wouldn't you expect her to identify more deeply with those Lebanese Syrian roots, right?
Myron Gaines exists. And he was raised by 2 black parents, and he identifies with white supremacists.
If she resented her Swedish roots, like my dad didn't do anything, and so I'm not even doing anything with the Swedes. I don't even like being Swedish. To the contrary, Erica feels so deeply attached to her Scandinavian roots that in 2019 she moved to begin the process of obtaining her dual citizenship.
See, like, even this framing, as if there's no, like, other reasonable explanations. But I know plenty of people who are ostracized by one side of the family and still identify with that ethnically. It's not abnormal at all. They feel like their identity is bad, so they want to identify with the part of them that they feel like is most socially acceptable or good with the worldview that they have. How many times have I known kids who were black, raised by 2 white parents, and they identify more with their black side?
I know a couple of white girls that identify well, but anyways, never mind. It's fine.
I don't mind that she's asking questions. What I don't like is she's inferring conclusions based off a lack of evidence. To be honest with you, she looks more Swedish than she does Arab too. So it ain't like she's gonna be accepted by the Arabs anyways. If you
She's
being
not
real.
now.
And someone says, not ABBA siding with Erica, the Epstein child pimp. It's not me siding with her.
That's when
Guys,
people
you
do that.
you can't say someone's guilty and then show up with shoddy evidence and then not be scrutinized. There's a reason why we have courts. There's a reason why we have the law. If you want someone to be guilty, that's fine. I already told y'all I don't like Erica, but you can't show up with shitty proof and then show that to me and then go like, well, if you don't believe the shitty proof, something's wrong with you. No, something's wrong with you because you don't care about the veracity of evidence. You don't care whether or not this shit is like well-sourced or anything. You're fine with shitty investigations if you think the party who's guilty is going to get done in. You don't actually care about well-investigated or good journalism. You want people to do garbage and then find people guilty with that. If that's what you want for your life, that's fine. But I promise you, when it's you on the other end one day, when it's one of your people that you like at the hands of a shitty investigation, you have no leg to stand on.
And the thing that happened is that whenever you have a shitty investigation, that's where everything that you wanted to happen to that person that's probably guilty is going to fall. O.J. Simpson. Shitty investigation. Dude did it. Because you cannot do something like that, get away, and then write a book that says, after that saying, if I did that, this how I would have done it. Come. Again, that's not proof. But the investigation was shitty.
Someone said she never said she's guilty at all. Candace has said this whole time, heavily implying it with everything under the sun. She's pretty much implied that the people at TPUSA are behind Charlie Kirk's assassination. The thing that she's levying against them is not like, isn't Erica Kirk weird? No, it's much more insidious than that. So pretending like all this is not to say that Erica Kirk isn't some kind of plant or some government operative or involved in some scheme is dishonest.
It is.
She's not doing a 10-part documentary series because she thinks Erica Kirk is quirky, because she's a bad actress. She's doing this because she thinks something much more nefarious, and that's what her audience understands. Bro, people are literally driving crazy on both sides of this shit.
She definitively was close to her grandfather. We know this because she posts about him many times over the years, referring to him affectionately as her morfar. In 2016, she's posting this, and she again is going to address him as her morfar. You see, I received a flurry of emails from our fans in Sweden about this particular post, and they did not like this post. And then they explained it to me a little further. They said, no, Candace, the Swedish language is quite literal here. Morfar quite literally translates into mother's father, morfar. And farfar quite literally translates into father's father. We have different words for these things. These have entirely different meanings. You would never call your father's mother your morfar. You would never call, that's what she's doing. She's calling him her morfar. That is Erica's farfar. If Kent is her father's father is her farfar. She said, the woman emailed this, she said, no Swedish grandfather would ever allow you to refer to him as morfar if he was not actually your morfar, okay? If he was your farfar, he'd say, very cute, I'm your farfar, let's get that straight.
I'm not gonna lie, I was laughing this whole section. I was going, morfar. So I guess because the grandparent she identifies with and calls her mother's father actually come from her father's side, which she claims she's not close to at all. Mm-hmm. And they think it's really weird because it's a little translation and it's not right the way she's using it.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Words have meaning. So why is her very Swedish grandfather, so Swedish, this line of Freemasons, Masons Swedish, allowing Erica to call him my mother's father? Lori's father? No, that's not
He's also not Swede. So it's just a bad translation. It could be a bad translation. Hey, there was a point in Spanish that I thought black person was Pichu Mayate. It is not. Don't use that word to say black. That is crazy.
It's possible. Well, I mean, you would imagine her grandparents would probably correct her if it was an issue, right? So if she's saying it wrong, grandparents would correct her. And so I get what you're saying, but her grandparents are Swedish. Why didn't they say anything when she would say the wrong word?
She's stupid. Maybe they, I don't know.
Here's another alternative. Let's say I'm taking Erica at her word and she wasn't close to her dad, okay? It's possible that she didn't want to use the correct term because it would acknowledge her father, who she doesn't want to include in the equation. So it's possible that the parents had a relationship with Erica through the mother, and so they would just call her Morfar. That's a possibility. I'm just saying, all of these things are all these like little oddities, but they're not unexplainable, and they're not like explainable necessarily by the most far-fetched ideas. People's family relationships are odd. I've seen people call someone their grandparent, and they were never their grandparent. It was just the old geezer who raised them, okay? And it's people have that. People call people uncles, aunts, cousins, and they have no blood relations whatsoever.
I'm Uncle
So the
Priest.
idea that like words have meaning and they're always clearly defined, and so you would only use the familiar term. I've seen people call folks their brother or their sister or whatever it could be. There's no blood relation. Is that everyone being really weird or stupid? I don't think so. You know I'm dying? Like, read in the chat are like, Abba's part of Turning Point. Abba's like Erica Kirk's. Have you not seen how many videos we've made shitting on that lady? I had so many people send me threats because of what I said about Charlie Kirk after his passing. It is so stupid to see our catalog of videos, see how we've talked about Charlie Kirk, which is no glowing terms. I never liked the man, and think I'm somehow bought out by TPUSA.
March 21st of 2019, Erica visits with Charlie. She's in Jerusalem with Charlie, what is known as Zion's Gate in Jerusalem. She posts a picture with a pretty curious caption. It reads in part, meet Darla, a Romanian Jew that now calls Israel home. She was sitting by my family's dedication sign for restoring the Zion Gate in Jerusalem. What? Why is Erica describing the Zion's Gate as her family's dedication? Speaking of which, why does her one-time roommate, Nicole Rothstein, allege that half of their family, referring to her and Erica's family, is Jewish? Doesn't make sense. Nicole Rothstein would be Erica's father's sister's husband's previous wife's daughter's daughter. In other words, zero blood relation, not even kind of related, kind of crazy. Would even call each other cousins. People do that. It's cool with my cousins. My cousin, okay, cool. Show you on the family chart just how removed this is. It's insane. Okay, we actually couldn't even fit it. It's so far removed. So you got her aunt, Carla, is married to a guy named Jack. But Jack was also previously married to somebody else, which you see there, named Edna. And this is Edna and Jack's line. This has nothing to do with Erica Franzwey. Again, how did she get so close to these people?
Yeah, but you need to tell us that. That's your job. Did they hang out every Sunday? Did they spend summers together? Did they send letters on a regular basis? Like, why are they calling each other cousin? They're not blood related. People do that all the time. I'm having a hard time because she's talking like this is crazy evidence. And there's nothing there other than huge assumptions. Have you heard anything wild so far?
No, but the thing that happened is that, listen here, brother. Fuck, I called you brother and you're not my brother. What are we going to do? Everything that she said is possible.
Time to switch
It's just the
things
proof.
up, including
It's not
which
proof.
side you're on. You'll need a top-notch
The
team
proof.
to win this one.
It's not proofing. It's not strong enough for me to be like, aha. It's not a gotcha moment.
I've seen these content creators. I'm pretty sure even Candace has probably called other content creators her brother, her family. I promise you, I'll probably pull it up for the next episode, but there's like no way. I've seen so many content creators like this talk about other people in their political sphere like family. They use familiar terms. Again, this is episode 1. Maybe she's going to connect the dots, but I just want to say, based off of all the assumptions you make in episode 1, I don't really see it.
Shout outs to Waka Kuna that said Myron calls people daddy all the time. And when she like that,
That's funny. That's funny.
That's funny.
That's funny. Someone wrote, Snoop Dogg calls everyone nephew.
and everybody calls Snoop uncle.
People call me
Solomon
uncle.
and Jack then.
Yeah, because you're uncle. You're old.
What is factual is that Jack Solomon eventually marries Carla Franzwey in 2002. And there are also some other really interesting facts about Jack. Jack and Erica's mommy aunt, I don't know, Carla, live in Utah. He graduated from what is today known as Utah Valley University. He's very involved in the university. At the very least, you'd think with all of the money that he poured into that university, he might be able to call someone to get us more footage of Tyler Robinson. Or Carla. How about Carla? She's married to the man. She could have maybe, in my imagination, made it to the hospital when Charlie was shot and killed. I mean, why did none of them make it to the hospital? They're all so nearby. She still lives in Utah. This happened in their backyard. Their family has a lot of power at UVU. why not Auntie Carla rather than Stacey Sheridan accompanying you onto Air Force Two as your husband's body is escorted to Arizona?
Again, a lot of questions. How old are they? Are they even moving? What did they hear? What did they know? This whole section was just off for me because it raised a lot of questions, but it didn't really answer too many of them. She starts to go into some of her schooling and academic history.
All right, now for some fun, because remember when they were freaking out about me discussing time travel? Me discussing specifically Project Looking Glass, the CIA thing that actually happened. They allegedly stole Sumerian technology to peer into the future. Well, you have to imagine my surprise when I began looking into Erica's early years. For some reason, I was under the impression, maybe you were too, but Erica moved to Arizona after her parents' divorce. So that would put her in Arizona after 1998. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here because it's a minor wrinkle, but her parents didn't divorce until she was 10. But it's totally possible, like when you're a kid and your parents are separating many times before they get divorced, that you associate a divorce with the separation. Anyway.
So she does give leeway and some explanation. And I think that makes sense. There's a million possibilities for why you might say someone is divorced when they might be going through the process and it takes a long, lengthy time. Okay?
For the same time that when I was a kid, my teacher was asking us what our parents were doing, and I said my dad was a doctor. My dad is not a doctor. My dad was a nurse. I'm 7. I don't know what the fuck the difference is. I know they all go in that big establishment that's called an hospital. So from the time that you actually sign the papers of divorce and the time that you divorce, when you say divorce and you're calling it a divorce, daddy's not home.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was necessary, and I just wish that same standard was applied to all the other locations. Because there are times where she just went with the first instinct of the conspiratorial, isn't that weird? And never gave the other side of what the possibilities were. But here she does, and there is a reasonable explanation. And I think if she's going to do this whole journalistic thing where she's going to ask these questions, she has to fill in the blanks. She got to give me a bit more than just a question. Because everyone, the viewers, can ask questions. We want to know what the answers are. And it's crazy because she does so much research. She'll pull up yearbooks. She'll pull up court records, old newspapers from 1930s. And I'm like, that's amazing. But when she gets to the question and she poses this very open-ended question, there's no more research beyond that to fill in the blank.
The point of having all those things, all those artifacts, is not so much to be able to understand a story, but it's you have the narrative before you have the evidence. So you're just gathering evidence to prove your narrative.
Yep.
You're not building all this and searching thoroughly through everything that you found to find a narrative. You're just, hey, my narrative, this fits my narrative, this doesn't, this, and you're just putting together what fits, and you're making it work. It's not because it fits that it belongs.
I'm nosy. I tracked down the yearbooks. I mean, I was working really hard while I was off. I don't have every year yet, but I do have some years, 1995 to 1996 in first grade, 1996 to 1997 in second grade, and 1997 to 1998, which is her in third grade. I gotta tell you, I am so glad that I found this Tesseract. I didn't get to time travel with it. I don't think I did. You think they saw me in the Looking Glass? How panicked were they when I said Looking Glass? Whoa! No! She's talking about Project Looking Glass. That's crazy. Meanwhile, they're down in Arizona, like naming their schools Project Looking Glass, like Looking Glass Tesseract. Put them in the school. I just love that. It was like an accidental troll. But what is very exciting about finding her at this school is that
The only way I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons is if she's a dungeon master. The stories would be amazing. Bro.
Hold up. There's a key word with D&D. It's called fantasy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
She's not doing fantasy.
Yeah, but imagine
You're gonna be rolling d20s for your actual life.
Yeah, but imagine if that's her real life. I want to see what's her fantasy though.
I don't think there's a difference. I think that's what's scary.
Hence my point. Hey, this girl should be a dungeon master for real, for real.
I mean, wow. Speaking to people who went to that school, the one in Paradise Valley, to be very clear, there's other Tesseracts. It got shut down. The one I'm talking about got shut down in the year 2000. And then other schools, because they had other schools, kept going. They changed ownership. But this one was there for a very small amount of time. I'm looking at the yearbooks, and there are some interesting players involved in this school that kind of went down for fraud, just robbing the piggy bank. It's like a recurring theme. We're going to stop here, though, because that's a lot.
I thought we were finally going to get something juicy like.
Cliffhanger is great.
But, that's why I'm going to watch.
She knows how to
I'm going to
tell a
watch at
story.
least 4 episodes to see if she connects all these dots with concrete proof. First episode for me was, again, as a giant Erica Kirk hater, I thought it was a bit of a dud. It raised some questions of like, why did this yearbook say that? And why was her marriage certificate wrong here, but here? But like I said, it's the first episode. I just think generally if you're going to do this, you got to give folks something that's concrete to let them know that this is not just going to be a bunch of open-ended questions. So am I optimistic? Not really, but I will watch with an open mind because I hate Erica Kirk and give me the fuel, baby. I like more content. I just don't think this is it.
It's entertaining, and it's more like a Michael Jackson take on what's going on with Erica Kirk. That's pretty much one. Why? I can't say that because of the
That's right.
Copyright is crazy, but that's what it was. It was a bunch of questions that you have to fill in the blank. It's like when I do a documentary. When I watch a documentary, I want the answers. I don't want it. This is unsolved mysteries. Back then with William Shatner, when this thing happened and we don't know why. You're always left on a cliffhanger and stuff like that. If I look at a documentary that Diddy did it, I want to know that he did it at the end. I don't want to be like a bunch of whys that I filled in. Like when I put a documentary on, this is my downtime. I'm not supposed to do some work like, oh, wait, dude. Oh, I don't want to do none of that.
What's your take on Erica Kirk? Why don't you like her? I mean, there's so many reasons not to like her. She's clearly a fraud. She's uncomfortable to watch. It looks like a constant act in a performance. She's utilizing her husband's death for profit. It is like the fakest fake Christian bullshit I've ever seen.
100%.
Where you use the dead to talk about Jesus and why you need millions in merch sales. The fuck are y'all talking about? I can't even believe it. Erica Kirk is so nasty. She has me feeling bad for Charlie Kirk, which is like, even that's only like a mid, and I don't like the dude, but if I died and that's how my wife was, shit, my whole life was a sham. Well, there's plenty of reasons to dislike this woman and the way that she goes about stuff and her using grief for her political aims. But yeah, I think it's kind of disgusting, irrespective of what political aisle you're on, to use the dead this way, especially when they're your own flesh and blood. Yeah. It goes beyond politics for me. For me, it's just like a family thing.
They gone. I can't make a little money out of them.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it just, ugh.
It's a little money.
A little.
I think we're at like over 200,000 for merch sales. Don't quote me on that because I think it just keeps like bumping up like crazy. But
we made 200,000 in merch sales on Saturday. Yeah. You guys are so amazing. This is like 5 days after Charlie's dead. That's crazy, bro. Everything she's doing. And then I got to have fucking Christian YouTubers hit me up. It's unacceptable the way y'all talking about Erica. Maybe if y'all stop lying to your audiences just because this lady's a Christian, maybe people wouldn't fucking think you're a fraud too.
What the fuck? Wait, I'm supposed to be the one talking shit about Christianity.
I don't talk shit about...
Don't take my shit.
No. I didn't do that. I didn't talk shit about Christianity. Okay. I talked about the Christian YouTubers. It's very different.
You're right.
But
it's because of the church.
Yeah. And I'm tired of people being like, you can't criticize a widow. She's a CEO of one of the most important political charities in the world. Shut the fuck up.
Journalist Jonathan Larson reports that U.S. troops were being told that the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran was in preparation for Armageddon and also the return of Jesus. Cenk, is this comforting information for you?
No, just when you thought the Israeli Zionists were bad enough in starting wars for all the wrong reasons, here comes the Christian Zionists. Joy. Wait till you hear what the commander said about why we're in this war and what to do. Tell us about it, Yes.
All right, so let's give you the high points. This is from Jonathan Larson's report. He says, a combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan and that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. and that is according to a non-commissioned officer. So we'll talk more about whatever that even means later. But between Saturday and Monday, more than 110 complaints had been logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, or the MRFF, regarding the rhetoric about commanders in every branch of military. The complaints were widespread across more than 40 different units across roughly 30 military installations. And according to one report, the non-commissioned officer wrote to the MRFF that their commander urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation, referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. And it is very understandable that all of this is coming directly from the top, because Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity at the uppermost levels of the US military, airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed to Larson that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study, and it's led by a preacher who says that God commands America to support Israel. And these are the people, again, who are running our country and running our military, and these are the things that they believe. So Larson spoke with MRFF president and founder Mikey Weinstein about the report, and this is what Weinstein had to say. He said, "These calls have one damn thing in freaking common. Our MRFF clients, service members who seek MRFF aid, report the unrestricted euphoria of their commanders and command chains as to how this new biblically sanctioned war is clearly the undeniable sign of the expeditious approach of the fundamentalist Christian end times as vividly described in the New Testament book of Revelation. Many of their commanders are especially delighted with how graphic this battle will be, zeroing in on how bloody all of this must become in order to fulfill and be in 100% accordance with fundamentalist Christian end of word eschatology, and that is, the end of worldness." That is terrifying that they seem to be giddy about everything that's happening now. It seems as though they're finally able to usher in this end of world, and so they can be raptured and go up to heaven. And of course, all of this violates the Constitution, which they don't seem worried about because the Constitution is very worldly and earthbound. And it also violates the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Weinstein had some choice words for the military members speaking this way to their subordinates, saying that they will be swiftly, aggressively, and visibly prosecuted. However, this is not the first time that talk like this was within our military in some capacity. Weinstein says that this kind of end of the world thinking creeps up anytime that Israel comes up. So after October 7th, 2023, Hamas is obviously attacked Israel, for instance, and the MRFF reported a complaint about an Air Force commander who said at a briefing that the war between Israel and Hamas has all been foretold by the book of Revelation in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and no one can do anything about that. Wow. As for what these evangelicals are even talking about, evangelicals are, in many ways kind of like OG Zionists. Many, including many in our government, believe that Israel must exist in order for Jesus to return. However, Pete Hegseth's Bible study leader, preacher Ralph Drollinger, teaches that the reason to support Israel is that God still blesses Israel's allies and curses Israel's enemies, even though Israel killed Jesus. And of course, this is rooted in historic anti-Semitism. So if you needed more proof that our government was being run by evangelical Zionists, I do have a quick clip to show you. This is Republican Representative Tim Burchett, and he is being asked a question about Israel and the second coming of Jesus and the United States' role in facilitating that.
Do you think there's a role of religious extremism here in the US funding and shaping the conflict? I mean, there are a lot of folks who are part of the evangelical movement that want to support Israel. Israel, and we don't really kind of see that same kind of constituent group pushing the other way.
Yeah, I wouldn't label the Baptist or the evangelical community as extreme because I feel like they're following the scripture and what the scripture says about Israel. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. I mean, they take it literal, and I'm one of those people.
There's some Christian Zionists that do believe in some of these biblical prophecies, and they're very controversial even within the Christian Zionist evangelical community. Yeah, and believing in Armageddon, that there will be a final battle around Jerusalem, and that after that battle, there's a judgment day. Jews will be killed or converted. Jesus will come back. There's going to be a rapture event. What do you think about those kind of prophecies?
I believe Jesus will come back, and I'm going to be on his side.
So he's going to be on Jesus' side. Jesus is going to come back. They're all going to recognize him. The world, I don't know what's going to, I haven't read the Bible in a while. It's been a while since I read the book of Revelation, I'll admit, but they believe that they will be blessed with heaven or whatever for helping Jesus return to earth. And in order to help Jesus return to earth, they have to facilitate the state of Israel. They have to protect it. And also they have to kill a lot of people, it seems, right? They really just don't feel any kind of remorse about it because they have this strongly held religious, dogmatic, evangelical belief. And that is what is underpinning everything that they're doing in the Middle East. And then of course, as much as they don't care about worldly pleasures and things like that, they are making a ton of money while doing so. They're just going to burn everything to the ground, and they're just going to leave the rest of us behind, and they don't care. This really explains, Cenk, why they don't believe in things like climate change, or why they don't think that it's an issue and they don't pay attention to it, or why they don't care about the institutions that they're burning down. This is a very, very destructive ideology, and it is intentionally so. What do you think?
Yeah. So first, that was Lee Fang doing good work in interviewing that congressman. And then Jonathan Larson was our former managing editor here at TYT. Super proud of him. This is a great story. The whole country's talking about it. Want to mention one quick detail in the story that I thought was interesting. They had one group, as Yaz explained to you guys, there's about 110 complaints at least, but one group of 15 in a unit. So you're saying, well, look, they're talking about Christian Zionism, so must have been like atheists or Jews or Muslims or someone that objected. And there was one Jewish guy, soldier, who objected, Jewish American. Obviously, they're all Americans. They're all in our armed forces. One Muslim American. 11 Christians objected. So the majority of the people who objected were Christians. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. So look, guys, do a lot of people believe in the return of Jesus? Absolutely. Like about 4 billion people, it's about half the planet, believe that, at least if they believe their religion, they believe that Jesus is going to return. Why? First, there's the Christians. But the book of Revelations is different than the end times theology. The end times theology comes from a bunch of books that some American jackasses wrote in the 1970s. My conspiracy theory on that is that Israel paid them to write those books because what's in them, which I'm going to tell you in a second, okay? But I'm open and honest. I have no information about that. Jonathan Larson, Lee Fang, whoever, the Ryan Grim, David Starr, all the great reporters in this country. Please go look into that, okay? Because it is so perfect for Israel. But I want you to know the other part of it. So yeah, Christians say Jesus is going to return. That doesn't mean they have to sign up to this Armageddon plan, right? But the other 2 billion is Muslims. Muslims also believe that Jesus is going to return, not Muhammad, but Jesus, because Muslims believe that the third book, the Old Testament, New Testament, and Quran. They respect Christians and Jews, and they call them people of the book. And they believe in all of their prophets, and in fact, at the end, they believe Jesus returns. Again, for traditional Christians and traditional Muslims, that doesn't mean that everybody is annihilated and murdered before Jesus returns, which leads us to the books that were written in the 1970s. So those guys wrote very, very, very conveniently for Israel that Israel must be formed. They must get the occupied territories. Really, that's in the Bible? That they have to get the occupied territories that they got in 1967? Somehow in the early 1970s, look at that, there's a book that says, oh yeah, the Bible says they have to have Gaza and the West Bank. Sure, as my daughter says these days, sure buddy, sure, right? And then the third thing is they have to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of the most holy sites in Islam, so that can start a giant war in the Middle East. By the way, congrats, we do have a giant war in the Middle East, our second one after the Iraq war, and I'm not even counting Afghanistan and all the other things that happen, right? So, and then they think, well, okay, well then what happens next? This seems lovely. We're taking the Palestinians' land, we're destroying their mosques, etc. Jesus wanted all of this. Remember, Muslims also want him to return, so I'm pretty sure they're not into that. But then it gets way worse. Then the war involves almost everyone on earth dying. So that includes you guys, and that includes tons, billions of Christians, let alone billions of Muslims, let alone almost all the Jews. So at the very end, In their twisted version of end times, God kills everyone in Israel. So that doesn't help Israel either. But 144,000 Jews are saved because they realize that Jesus is real in the nick of time, in this ridiculous soap opera for serial killers, okay, that they wrote. Unfortunately, a giant chunk of the country totally got bought into this. By the way, by pastors who were continually given free trips to Israel and given tons of money and perks from Israel, pushing this garbage on American Christians over and over again. Kill the Muslims, give Israel everything, start giant wars for Israel. Don't worry, it'll work out. And by the way, I mean, you know what happens at the end. All the Jews are killed, all the Muslims are killed, and almost all the Christians are killed. Where's the interesting part of this? I mean, this is a maniacal death cult. So that doesn't mean that every Christian Zionist knows that they're in a death cult and is like some weirdo psycho. No, most of them are very normal people. They go to church and they listen to the pastor go, oh yeah, and then at the end, everybody's dead. Yes! Like, are you sure that's Jesus coming back and not the other guy? Right? But they've got people to buy into this without knowing it. Perfectly normal people going, and the leaders pretend to speak on behalf of the actual Christians in this country. And the actual Christians that are going to the churches have no idea what those leaders are doing. Those leaders sent a letter to George W. Bush before the Iraq war, and they said, you better not be even between the Palestinians and the Israelis. You must support only the Israelis and crush the Palestinians. That's what Jesus would have wanted because he was born in Bethlehem. Oh, right, that's the West Bank. Oh, he's Jesus of Nazareth. Where's that? The West Bank. So Jesus, who lived in Bethlehem and Nazareth, would have wanted America to fund the country destroying Bethlehem and Nazareth. But these sick guys not only wrote that, but they encouraged Bush at the time. You have to go to war with Iraq and start Armageddon. And now here they are. They're back in our military, telling the troops, go murder as many Muslims as you can because we're trying to start Armageddon. This is ludicrous. We have to end the belief in this death cult. The problem is not the Christian followers. It is those pastors that are deeply corrupt. And yes, there's another reason why, what Tucker Carlson has done lately. People can say I'm a bad guy for supporting Tucker on his anti-war stance, anti-Israel stance, etc. But he also said that the Christian Zionists were totally wrong, and that if you're a good Christian, you wouldn't want any of this death and destruction. And that is an enormous favor to the country that he said that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this whole saga that you just laid out is unbelievable. And it's not just like an unbelievable thing in the sense that it sounds like mythology, but there's so many people who are so entrenched in our government, not just in this government, I should say, but around the world. And they're so zealous about it. And they really just believe that this is a physical thing that they have to help manifest in our reality in this physical world. And the fact that these people are running our country, the fact that we have a prayer breakfast at the White House, the fact that Pete Hegseth has a Bible study now at the Pentagon, it's unbelievable for a country that still proclaims to have some semblance of a separation of church and state. And I know that line has become very muddled lately, very intentionally so, especially in red states, especially here in Texas, I've been seeing that a lot. But the idea that we used to have religious freedom in this country where it's like, sure, you can practice your own religion. No one's going to force you to be anything, but we're all subject to all of this, right? Nobody voted to invade Iran. Nobody said, I support this. And this has like some of the lowest support I think ever for an invasion like this. I think it was at 36% overall, including Republicans. And even among Republicans, it has very little support compared to historically the way that they tend to support these things. But none of that matters, right? And none of that matters if the end goal is something divine and something heavenly and something supernatural and out of this literal world, right? None of this can be proven. This is not a logical thing. And so we're dealing with illogical geopolitics here. And that's why we're struggling to make sense of everything that's happening. And they'll give you all the geopolitical reasons for why it's happening. It's like, oh, they cut off the Strait of Hormuz, and oh, they have weapons of mass destruction. You know who has weapons of mass destruction destruction. You know who has a lot of them and there is no oversight for any of them is Israel. They have acquired over, like, I think it was in the 90s, it was reported that they had over 200 nuclear weapons. That was a whistleblower came out and said that in the 90s, though. So if that's all true, we can assume that they have a lot more by now. And they acquired them illegally with the help of the United States, of course, and they have no oversight on them. When we had the Iran nuclear deal in place, it was, they weren't allowed to enrich their uranium beyond a certain point, and they weren't allowed to have as many enricher machines, I can't remember what they're called. And all these things were put in place to prevent what Benjamin Netanyahu kept yelling about since, again, the 90s, that, they were going to launch a nuclear attack and everybody was gonna be at risk. And so Obama put the Iran nuclear deal in place and Trump got rid of it. All the oversight was gone, like nothing. And then now he's like, oh, now they're a threat. I don't know why, I don't know how that happened, but Israel.
Yeah, look, I think Israel's by far the country most likely to use a nuke. I mean, they're so deeply paranoid. They demand 100% security, etc. If they thought they were like had like 1% chance of losing 1% of their territory or something, they'd nuke someone in a second. I'm super duper worried about it. Yes, there's a country in the Middle East that has nukes already. It is Israel. Is there a country that's likely to use it, or that I'm worried is the most likely to use it? Let's put it that way. Yes, it's definitely Israel. So I realize that as we're doing the story, yes, I'm the exact opposite of a Christian Zionist. So they're actually, again, guys, not the Christians themselves. They barely know anything about it, right? It's the leaders that I'm talking about. They're actually deeply anti-Semitic. And so Pete Hegseth is doing a Bible study at the Pentagon every week. Already that's unconstitutional. Then he brings this crazy pastor that keeps preaching about, and this is another story that Jonathan Larson broke, preaching about how, the Jews killed Jesus. What is that? I never understood that. I think it's crazy talk. Like, first of all, yes, the Romans killed Jesus, but second of all, who cares? Jesus was Jewish. Like, this is madness. So that's why I say I'm the exact opposite of them. They love Israel and Israel's wars and war crimes, but they actually don't like Jews at all. I love Jewish people, companies like, and my life and my friends, my family, and I tell you guys all the time, the crimes of Israel don't ever make the mistake of putting that on Jewish Americans who had nothing to do with it, okay? So I love those guys, and I can't stand Israel at current government, their wars and their war crimes. So, and then ironically, the people who are supporting Israel that are in that Christian Zionist group and other groups like that will turn around and say to us, oh, you guys are anti-Semites, so we're not supporting Israel. Bro, you want to kill all of them, and that's your dream scenario. So please spare me the anti-Semite crap from those guys especially, also from everyone else.
For the last 82 years, the way that you built wealth was pretty straightforward. Buy stocks in the United States and hold them forever. But that system is quietly changing. Gold prices are growing faster than the stock market. Investors are starting to move their money outside of the United States, and countries are also trying to move away from the United States dollar. And here's why you should pay attention, because the people that understand this shift will be able to grow their wealth faster, while the people that don't understand what's happening are going to slowly fall behind. And you can already start to see the impacts of this because the majority of America doesn't have enough money to retire because traditional investment accounts are not growing fast enough while the cost of living keeps going up. So let's break this all down, and I want to remind you that this is why on March 18th, 2026, I'm hosting a live, free, and virtual investor workshop where I'm going to be presenting the most recent research that my firm has identified as to where the economy is moving and how these shifts create new and unique investment opportunities. You're going to see how things are changing in our economy right now and how you can position your money based off of these changes. So if you're an investor, I invite you to join me on this workshop for free on March 18th. I'm doing it live twice, once in the morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time and again in the evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. All you have to do is register, and if you'd like to do so, I have the link for you down in the description below. 82 years ago in 1944, the United States dollar became the world's reserve currency. And being the world's reserve currency means three things. Number one is that countries around the world will trade in certain commodities like oil with the United States dollar. Number two, investors around the world, when they want to protect and preserve their wealth, they save their money in the dollar. And this is why, number three, the United States dollar has so much value, because our dollar is not backed by physical gold. Our dollar is just a piece of paper. I mean, it costs 12 cents to print a $100 bill. But the reason why the dollar has so much value is because the entire world has value and faith in the United States dollar, because we have trade happening in the dollar and we have investors around the world saving their money in the dollar. And because so many people have so much faith and value in the United States dollar, it allows the United States to do something in a way that no other country can. It is print more money. The United States government can continue spending money that they don't have in a way that other countries can't, because our dollar continues to have value. This is why the United States government has over $38 trillion worth of national debt. The way that it works, just so we're on the same page, is that the United States government has one source of revenue. It collects tax dollars from taxpayers. And then the United States government goes out and they spend all these taxes and then some, because, well, they don't feel like whatever they generate from taxes is enough. So in order to supplement all this additional spending, the United States government has to go out and borrow this money through debt. Now, where does the United States government borrow this money from? They can borrow this money from people like you and me, regular people. They can borrow this money from institutions and big banks. They can borrow this money from foreign countries like Japan and the United Kingdom and China. Or, if that's not enough, which it hasn't been enough, they can turn to our central bank here in the United States, the Federal Reserve Bank. And the Federal Reserve Bank, although they're called the Federal Reserve Bank, they're actually not a bank, because you and I can't go there to deposit money. They're not a reserve because they're not sitting on any cash reserves, and they're actually not federal because they're not a part of the United States government. But they have the ability to print money. And so now when the money gets printed, it's more dollars that are just being created out of thin air. And that money gets lent to the United States government, and then they spend that money. But that has a consequence, because if the government could just print an unlimited amount of money, why do we even have to pay taxes in the first place? Well, the consequence is inflation, the prices of things going up. Not to mention that the second largest expense for the United States government is not our military, it's paying interest on all of this debt, because when the United States government borrows this money, they have to pay it back plus interest. And so now we're at a point where the government is paying more tax dollars on the interest on this debt than they're paying for our entire military. Now, here's why being the world's reserve currency is so powerful, because if this was any other country in the world, countries would stop lending money to this country, because they would fear this currency is going to collapse and this country would then go through an economic crisis. But that's not happening here in the United States. Countries keep lending money to the United States because we are the world's reserve currency. But what happens when the world's reserve currency starts to get a little bit too fat, to borrow a little bit too much money? This is a term called exorbitant privilege, and for 82 years, American investors have been getting rich off of it. Why? Because when investors around the world want to invest their money, protect their wealth, and grow their wealth, they want to put it somewhere safe. And where is that safe place? It is the United States and the United States dollar. So we've been seeing money from around the world go into the United States stock market, into the United States bond market, into the United States real estate market to boost these United States assets. While at the exact same time, the United States government has been pumping money into our economy, which creates more jobs, which helps the economy grow. Of course, there's a consequence and risk of inflation from all that money printing, but because we're the world's reserve currency, people continue to have faith in the dollar, which helps mitigate that inflation risk. This is why for previous generations, you could just throw your money into the S&P 500 and be able to retire comfortably and be wealthy. Now, it's still a good thing to do, but because the cost of living has been growing so much, because of all the money printing we've been seeing, that might not work the way that it did in the past. It's still a good thing to do, but you might need some additional gains to be able to retire wealthy or comfortably the way the generations did in the past. And so now, 82 years after the United States dollar became the world's reserve currency, we're starting to see things change. And I'm gonna break this down into 3 different categories that I will talk about in this video. Number 1 is because of gold, and gold prices have been breaking record highs year after year after year. Now, the reason I wanna talk about gold specifically is because when you buy gold, it's it's not producing a profit. It doesn't have employees. It's not creating any real value. When you buy gold, it just sits there and looks back at you. Compare that to buying the Amazon stock. When you buy the Amazon stock, you're buying a share of a company that has a bunch of employees that are trying to produce new products, that are trying to sell more stuff, that's trying to create more value. So when people buy gold, it's not because they believe that gold is going to have so much more value in the future. They buy gold because they're worried about the dollar. They buy gold because they're concerned about something happening. They buy gold because they want an alternative way to store the value of their wealth and their money. That's why people buy gold. It's because of fears and concerns. But that's not all. Do you want to know who the biggest buyer of gold is right now? It's not regular investors. It's central banks around the world who have been actively working to buy gold. That way they can strengthen their currencies against the United States dollar. Now, this isn't a new trend. This has been happening for years. But we're seeing this continue to happen where more and more countries around the world are starting to acquire more gold as a way to strengthen their economies and to strengthen their currencies because now they have collateral to measure their currency against. Number two is investors are putting their money outside of the United States. In 2022, $92 of every $100 that was invested in global stock flows went to United States stocks. Fast forward to 2026, and out of every $100 going into global stock flows, it is only 26 going to United States stocks because more and more investors are investing their money outside of the United States. And now you're probably wondering, well, where's that money going? It's going into Asia and it's going into Europe. This is part of the reason why so many international markets have been outpacing the United States stock market. Now, the question you might be wondering is why? Why are investors looking to invest their money outside of the United States stock market? And again, there's a few reasons for this. Reason number one is that the United States dollar is just getting weaker, like we've been talking about. 2025 was one of the worst years for the United States dollar in almost the last decade. Number two is the United States stocks have just gotten kind of expensive. Like if we take a look at the 500 largest companies in the stock market, the S&P 500, well, a big chunk of the S&P 500 is really the biggest 7 companies. They're called the Magnificent Seven. If we take a look at the 7 largest companies in the stock market, that makes up more than a third of the entire S&P 500. So we're getting kind of overweight with a few tech companies that are really leading the entire United States economy. And then of course, number three, many countries around the world are really just growing faster than the United States, so it creates more faster economic and investment growth. Now hear what I'm saying very carefully. I'm not saying that the United States is not the largest economy in the world. We are. What I'm saying is that before, we were the only real investment opportunity in town. Well, now there's more opportunities popping up, and that's where investors are starting to diversify, which creates opportunities, which is one of the things that I'll be talking about on my workshop on March 18th, which is why if you haven't registered yet, make sure you do so. And then number three, we're starting to see more and more countries start to move away from the United States dollar. And to put this in perspective, back in 2001, 74% of the global reserve currencies were saved in the United States dollar. Fast forward to 2025, and the number has fallen to about 49%, which means more and more countries around the world are not saving dollars the way that they used to. They're looking for alternatives. But that's not all. Do you remember what I said earlier, that when you're the world's reserve currency, one of the biggest benefits is that a lot of trade around the world happens in your currency, the United States dollar? Well, we're starting to see competition to that. For example, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, were working to create their own alliance. That way they can make trade with their own currencies outside of the United States dollar. And even if we take a look at oil, which is one of the most